All right, folks, let's jump into it. We're going to be in section 3, which I believe is what? Chapters 14, 15, 16? No.
13.
13, 14, 15.
And then, yep.
I want to do 2 things today. Well, actually, 3.
No, you only get 2.
I only get 2. I'm limited now. We're going to run over a quick schedule here this morning. And I have a little exercise that I want to do with that to kind of prep for tomorrow. Tomorrow we got a guest speaker coming in. Eli from across the hall, Eli Bowles, is kind of an expert in alternative energy. And I asked him to come in and talk about that, as you'd have to kind of live under a rock to know that there's not a lot of this going on at this point in time, and it'd be nice if you got the true facts on it. So he's going to come in and talk about alternative energy systems, how you can use them, what they're really capable of. I'm looking forward to that because I haven't done any research on alternative energy for a number of years, probably at least 6. The last time I really tried to study it. So I'm looking forward to catching up on that. I asked him to try and keep it around 2 hours. It's going to be somewhat interactive. Eli kind of is a pretty interactive speaker, so give it a little bit of thought while you come through it. He's going to have our building, so he's going to be able to talk a little bit about our structure and how to work it. So that will go on tomorrow. And then the other thing we need to do is we need to prep for our field trip on Monday, which thank goodness we're not going today. I don't want to be out there. I should tell you a story about the worst work day I ever had in my life. It was a day much similar to this, but I'll leave that for another time. So for us to, on Monday, we're going to do a variety of things. First thing we're going to do is we're going to go out to the site that we're going to build this structure on. And certainly when you folks are, if you're doing home design or even commercial design, the site trip needs to happen early in the design process. I mean, because really you're where you're sitting on the planet and how it's all working has a lot to do with what you design for. Now certainly we can do a lot of that in today's world with Google Earth and just the internet, but nothing is really the same as going out there and standing on it and seeing the conditions of the site. Because we're putting we're spending a lot of time, or we will shortly, on that big window of walls, or wall of windows. Well, if you spend a lot of time on that based on the client, and then you go out there and there's something blocking that view, you just wasted all that time, right? Absolute waste of time. And so you want to get this site done fairly quickly. Now, on this one, we've just had to kind of squeeze it in, but we'll be out there on Monday. For Monday, we're going to need to know the property on where we go. And that's kind of what I'm prepping up for today, and then what we're going to look for and the information we'll gather. Now, also on Monday, just so you know, once we finish with the site, I expect to be on it for about an hour. Then we will then take off and go through a bunch of buildings under construction. So we're going to go through some in various stages. We'll probably, we'll hit them as we drive, but I want to look at some that are in the foundation stage. So they're just developing the site, and we place the supporting structures for the house. Nothing else, so you can see that. We haven't gone to foundations yet, but it'd be nice if you could visualize it. Then we'll move into some structures that are in the framing stage, and hopefully we get lucky and see some that have been roughed in. By that, have been framed. They've got HVAC in them, they've got plumbing in them, they've got electrical in them, and you can see how all that is tied in before drywall goes on. Generally, I don't want to go into a finished home. Okay. Certainly, I think there's people out there that would let us in, but we're going to have dirty shoes and things like that. And if accidents happen on a finished home, somebody's got to fix it, right? So I think we'll probably stay out of that. I'm hoping you all live in a finished home and you can kind of use that as your own example. Okay. So that's kind of the plan on Monday. Figure on Monday we will not be in class really at all. I do want to be back by noon. Okay, so we'll leave and get back soon enough to get Gabe off to where he needs to be.
Are we driving our cars or going with you? Or?
No, I'm going to get a van.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still working on it. I haven't finalized it, but I'm assuming that I will be able to get one and we'll all go together. I'll give you the lead time and all that when we get closer. Any questions on any of that information? All right, to kind of prep for Eli, when we talk about putting in alternative energy systems, keep in mind, we can't really do much of anything without energy, right? We all use it in some form or fashion. Now, certainly, I think our energy needs are a little more dramatic today than they were a decade ago, and I envision that just keep going and going and going, and that most of our devices are now run by that. But the thing you want to kind of keep in mind is how much do you want to pay for a convenience that energy can give you. And I'm going to run a quick calculation up here so you can kind of see a way to make a decision on whether you go with some energy device that you think might help you out. Almost always we make these on an economic basis. Now certainly you can have the feel-good component come in, these types of things, and that has a price tag, okay, depending on the person. But ultimately, if you're dealing with a business or something, it will come down to a budget, okay, of some form or fashion. When we do a budget, what we look for is, if I go with one system versus another, when is my payback going to be? By that, if I invest more up front for this new technology, it better do something for me or I'm not going to invest in it, right? There's got to be a benefit. Usually it's in dollars saved. Now, when those dollars catch up to how much I invest, that tells you the payback or how long your investment lasts. If I'm dealing with a client that says, this is my second home, I'm building this, I'm going to sell it in 3 years, that's going to be a huge concept in what I put into that house. I'm now not spending $200 on a faucet that's going to last 20 years. Okay, I'm going to buy a midline faucet that's going to last 10 years. It'll get them through their use, the new owner in a little bit, and then it's that person's problem. If you deal with a spec home, that's why everything in the spec home wears out after about 15 years. Because that's it. It's what all the stuff is designed for. How we run this is what we call our payback scenario. Okay, so I kind of ran a quick example up here. So we're going to look at a cost-benefit analysis of a heating system. And this is pretty applicable in today's world. I drew this up a while back, but the costs are still pretty applicable to this. So let's say we got a house, and we're getting ready to do it. The client said, hey, I'm going to live in here for 10, 15 years before I move it. So then we need to figure out, are they going to benefit from making this decision? So we go out and price different furnaces. So straight electric furnace, this one costs $6,500, but it has an 80% efficiency. By that, the energy that comes in, we lose 20% of that energy through air friction, heating loss, these types of things. So we consider it 80% efficient. So it's taking that electricity, converting it to BTUs at a rate of 12.8. Now we can also get a much better furnace, like this one, but we got to spend more. So $10,500 for this one, but the efficiency is 96%. And yes, we have furnaces that do this. They're very, very efficient. Now this is almost a 1-to-1 ratio. So I lose almost no energy on this one. So it's a very efficient deal. Now what's going to be the difference between these two? I still got the same amount of energy it takes to heat this house. This one's going to cost me more money because I'm losing 20% of the energy I put into it, right? This one costs me less to run because I'm only losing 4% of the energy I put into it. But they're both heating the same space. What we then do is we look at what it takes to run it. This one costs $1,000 a year. This one costs $500 a year. These costs are probably a little outdated. Those of you that are paying power bills, you might think, oh, that lower one's a monthly bill in today's world. I did this back when we had nothing but water power around here, and it was 4 cents a kilowatt instead of 12 that it is currently. You can thank your windmills for that. Here's your calculation on how to figure it out. Okay, so we take the capital cost of one, the most efficient one. We subtract the cost of the $6,500, the less efficient one. Okay, the difference is $4,000 right here. So I have to put up $4,000 right up front to go to the more efficient one. So I'm down $4,000, right? So the goal here is, when do I get that $4,000 back? Okay. I'm gonna get it back in a yearly cost on my heating bill. So I take the 4,000, I divide that by the difference in my heating bills. And that's 500, right? This one costs 1,000, this one only costs 500, so I'm making $500 a year off of this. This one comes back and says, at 8 years, we are now at a break-even situation. So if I would have bought this one or this one at 8 years, they cost me the exact same money now. Now keep in mind that before 8 years, I made money on this one. Okay. After 8 years now, I will make money on this one. 8 years is your break-even rate. So I was saying, hey, if I'm going to live here for 10 years, what's the economic decision to do? Buy the efficient one. You're going to make $1,000 on that deal, right? You're going to make $500 a year. If I'm going to be here for 5 years, what's the decision I make? Okay. That's kind of it. If a person doesn't know, a general guideline that I've always used through, and a lot of different people use it, it's not my guideline, it's 7 years on the residential market. If I haven't made my time back in 7 years, I'm not doing it. And that's a pretty general rule. Now there's some other things that come into play. Technology does change, so this might morph over time, and the conditions change. But we don't know what that is, so we design for now. Science gets better over time. Any questions on what this would do? We look at big ticket items when we're doing this. A furnace, okay. Maybe one carpet versus another, where that flooring, kitchen cabinets, these are big ticket items in a house, right? That's what we look at.
How do you time out a kitchen cabinet?
Oh, pretty easy. You run down to Home Depot and cost it out. And then you go to Black Pine Cabinets and you have them cost out the same kitchen with knotty pine drawers and nice brass handles. And then you compare the cost of the two. The Home Depot ones are probably, the runners are going to fall off in 15 years. And
Okay, it's 15, I guess.
cabinet doors will start sticking.
What's the lifespan? I guess that was my question.
Yeah.
What's the lifespan of the cabinet?
Yeah, and then if you go to the Black Pine and get the really nice ones, they're in essence for the life of the structure.
And do you want to remodel between them?
Difference between a metal roof and an asphalt shingle roof, right? We talked about metal being more expensive, but it's a lifetime deal. Asphalt shingles is 20, 30 years. Simple calculation will help you make that call. All right, I wanted to kind of just bring that up because when we hear Eli's talk tomorrow on alternative energies, this is really something that needs to happen with those systems. Because they're not cheap. I mean, you're diving into new science, new technology, and that comes with a price tag. And so we need to make that decision. Are you willing to be the person that finances the advance of this, or are you going to wait for science to get a little bit better and make you some money right a little sooner? Okay. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up. Any questions or thoughts? Okay. All right, let's jump into site plans. I want to start on page 337 with this drawing here. So let's end with let's start with what we're ending with. In a site plan, in essence, what we're going to do is we're going to do a top view. Oh, another one. Okay, we've got a bunch of them, right? This is another one. We're in a hot air balloon looking straight down on a piece of property and the structures we're dealing with. This drawing right here is a real typical town type site plan. Where you see your house, you can see the roof here, because that's what we see. So we put the roof plan on here. That's the drawing. You do have the hidden line showing the outside. Now, technically, do we need the walls for the site plan?
No.
It depends on the codes of the local jurisdiction. Ours, we do. Okay, because we have easements and setbacks, I'll get into those in a minute, that go from the walls. There are some counties where all of their easements and setbacks go from the architectural projections, they call it. That is roofs and decks. Okay? So for us, we're gonna have to keep our walls so far away from a property boundary. So we need our walls on ours. So in essence, we're gonna put our roof plan on here, minus all the information for the roof plan, just the view. Now, the other thing you'll see on here, you have this phantom line that runs around the outside. This is what's called a property line. Okay, we have to show property ownership. Okay, we can't build on somebody else's property as much as we might want to. So, I should talk about line weights while I'm in here. Okay, we did a roof plan at 031, right? We need to switch that. It is now 024 when we look at our roof plan. The reason is because we have a more important line on here than on the roof plan. This roof edges, ridges, and valleys were the most important line. Here they're not. The most important line on this one is your property boundary. Okay. This one should be 0.031 inches. But most of our decisions will be based off of that line. That circles the property. You can see the information on the property line. They've laid it right alongside it here. 96.03 feet. These are done in decimal feet, by the way. 102 right here. Another one. This one right here, 107. Okay. So we just lay the dimension or the length of those lines right along them. We don't really dimension them. You have another line, and it's hard to pick up on here, so I'm going to put it right here. This is a hidden line, so therefore it will be at 0.012 inches. This line will be an easement or setback line, whichever is most restrictive. Okay. So let me kind of write that down. Easement / setback.
That actually looks like a smaller phantom line. That doesn't look like a big line.
Well, it should be a.
It's a phantom in the book. That should be.
Okay. So that's this guy, right here. It should be a hidden line. Now, let's explain what these are and what this statement means. And let me see if you folks were able to pick that out. Anybody that's able to look through the text or has dealt with these issues in real life. Let's start with a setback. What is a setback? Does anybody know? Yes, Lisa.
How far back the structure has to be from either road or property line?
Okay, so it's a distance that we set structures back, hence the name, setback, that we are not allowed to build in. And these are almost always done from a property line. In Twin Falls City and Twin Falls County, we have standard setbacks on every piece of property here. Okay, so they are applied. So for Twin Falls City, or Twin Falls County, let me put it, Twin Falls County, we have 3 foot on the sides, 7 foot front and back. Okay. And that's on every piece of property in Twin Falls County.
What about odd shaped properties?
Doesn't matter. Okay, we take this line. This is on what I would consider a back line, or maybe this is the front line. I'm not sure. I haven't looked at this enough to know where the front door is. I'm guessing it might be right in here. So this would, let's call this a front. So I would come to this property line. I offset 7 feet. That's where that line goes. I cannot build up in here. I come to a side. I offset that property line 3 feet. I cannot put a structure in there. Now for Twin Falls City and County, this means walls. Your roof overhang can go into that space, but your walls cannot. 1 second. Now the reason these are here is to protect the property values of your neighbor, not you. So they can't come right on the property line and build this huge structure and block your views. Okay, it's to get them off of that and have room to work around it. Okay, you got a
So
question?
now I think we have like a setback of 15 feet from the road, and then from that 15 feet is when our setback from the house starts.
So the property actually kind of goes the road, but it's not really yours.
Mhm.
So we have the easement setback, and then your whatever it starts from there.
Yeah, you've actually got an easement over your property, and you have a setback that goes with it. That
Yes.
conventionally, that's why I say only show the most restrictive. Now, we're gonna kind of explain that. So that's your setback. This is applied by counties, cities, states, government items. They apply these. Twin Falls City is the same as the county, except that their front goes to 15 feet in the city. Okay. But they use the exact same,
That's county?
excuse me, there's one other one. Their sides go to 7 feet. So it's 7 feet all around in the city, but 15 in the front. And maybe I just butchered that. I'm going off of my memory here. It's on their website. Yes, Sheriff.
Where do you go to get plans? I'm
The
sorry.
assessor's office has all this information.
You're good, so what's the most important? I mean, what do you say? If you have the easement thing like doing that, what's the most,
Okay, we're on setbacks. I'm going to move to easements next.
they don't,
Okay.
that-
Any questions on what a setback is? It is a distance from a property line defined by a government agency that you may not put a structure in. Absolutely cannot put it in there. Okay? The concept is designed to protect property values. Okay. Now, let's move to the other term. What's an easement? Does anybody know what an easement is?
That just comes from, local authorities
Right
where
away.
they have, rights on your land.
That's pretty close. I wouldn't call it the local authorities. I would say something more like local entities, namely utilities. And what you're doing is you're granting them access to your property to do work.
It's over
So,
boxes or.
in essence, that's what you're doing. In our country, what we really have to look for is Twin Falls Canal Company. If you're out there, they will have access onto your property, I can pretty much guarantee it, at some place. Even if it's a bare field, and doesn't have anything on it, I'll bet you there's a Twin Falls Canal Company easement on it. Most of the time, if you look at a city lot, you will have an easement 20 feet off the front property boundary. Now, this is an easement, it's not a setback. Okay, so in the city's gonna put a 15-footer. But then what's gonna happen is the property is gonna then get a 20-foot natural gas easement on it. Now, why is this? It's because in the city, when they build those lots and subdivisions, the natural gas contractor gets to come through, and they don't want their stuff in the street. Natural gas is very explosive, right? And we dig up streets, so we don't put natural gas in streets. We move it into the property and run it about 8 feet under the ground. Okay, so nobody can dig it and hit it. So you hear about those disasters happening. Well, they put it 15 feet into the property line. So they, on the subdivision, then they plat it and say, we're gonna give the natural gas company 20 feet because they gotta get a backhoe in there if they've gotta do some work on it. So we'll give them where their line is, plus 5 feet. So if I'm looking here, you know, what I'm gonna have is somewhere in here, I'm gonna have a natural gas line. Well, I need to have a utility work on that occasionally. And so I'm gonna apply that 20-foot easement.
fence there.
Yep. The phone company, they probably have it. Electric company can probably access it. You might have drainage easements on the sides of your property where we're taking the water from the subdivision and shedding it somewhere. All of these are easements. And they're generally more restrictive, but they're the only ones we show. So on this front, I've got a 15 from the city and a 20 from the natural gas. I only show one, and it's at 20 feet. One restriction. I show the most restricted. Now, can you build inside of an easement? You can't inside of a setback. Obviously, I'm asking this for,
If you want to move it, they can make you move it.
you can build in it. You can build in it, we do it all the time. Do y'all have a driveway that goes to the street? You're putting a driveway over the top of an easement. Does the electric company have the ability to go in and tear your driveway out? Yes, they do. Would that electric utility be in business if they went and tore everybody's driveway out and never fixed it? No, the populace would go into an uproar, right? They try and be good neighbors. But if they need to rip your driveway out, they have the legal right to do it. Okay? We take fences to property lines. Can they knock your fence down and do some work? Yes, they can. Generally, they're gonna fix it. Okay? Or they'll work it out with you and say, hey, you know, we're willing to, we gotta do this work. We'll do something to compensate, but we need to take this structure out.
So what I'm hearing, so it's not a law, regulations, if you put your fence out to that line,
No, you can put your fence out to that line.
okay. But they don't have to fix it if they, you know?
No, they don't have to.
Okay.
But it's pretty established that they will. As long as it's not egregious. Now, if you put a house in there and you break the law and put it out there, that's too expensive for them to fix. They're not gonna fix that. You screwed up.
So you
Then
would
you would
leave
look at
it-
other alternatives, you know, maybe can we drill underneath it with a horizontal drill? Can we do other things? And you're probably footing the bill for that, but you're not losing your structure. Yes?
So, so one question, so what if you have a street behind your house?
Then you might have that same easement both sides.
So, but, so you have your grass, your fence, and so does your easement go into the street then?
Well, it depends on where your property line is.
The street and your property?
The old stuff in the county road, so it sounds like Lisa's is this way, the
Because-
property line went to the center of the street, then you gave the city the easement for the street, they take it over and they maintain it. You own it, but you don't ever use it.
We just pay
Right.
taxes on it.
But the new subdivisions don't, they plat the streets immediately, nobody owns it, they immediately turn it over to the city as soon as it's paved, or the county or whatever. They take it over and your property line starts at the edge of the street.
Okay.
In the old days, we